such a privilege to have you on this sort of communication and interview for what not to do in entrepreneurship. Um, we have a common friend who has such admiration for you and your achievements, and I thought that I would instigate you to share those with a lot of people who would love to learn the energy that is you, the passion that is you, and obviously the journey that is you. So, welcome to this exchange. It's a free flowing exchange of ideas, thoughts, and just about as much as I would love to learn, so would the readers of the book. Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much, Sanjeev. I appreciate you having me here today. Excited about this.
Yes, of course. In your sort of the journey since 2007, I believe, when you created this inspiration called Inspira Marketing,
Yeah.
right? Tell us first, give us a background about that, but tell us what in your definition in through the Inspira is called or to be an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
and how did you integrate that into the dream of Inspira?
Yes. Wonderful. Well, it started a lot well before 2008. We actually started in the March of 2008. I, like probably most people, when you first come out of college, I test drove a lot of different careers, and it was a really great way to kind of find out, I think, what you didn't want to do in life. Um, when I finally kind of landed into this world of event and experiential marketing, I knew that I was home, because it was just so amazing to be able to go there and be able to craft like just different ideas and really kind of build it to life, and just see that human connection, how you can connect the brand and the consumer together. And I was hooked. And it was really an amazing run. I've been in this industry really most of my life, with a couple of really big large firms. Um, what happened though originally is I just saw that experiential marketing, I almost put it like would be at the kids table. You had advertising agencies that were kind of creating overall marketing strategy, and promotion agencies that did this, and PR. And then if there was money left over, it would go to events and experiential. But I just noticed that when you are able to be face to face and live with someone and have that personal, meaningful connection, it just really, at the end of the day, we're closest to the customer. We know exactly what levers to pull to actually be able to surprise and delight them. And I just felt as if experiential is actually should be at the very top of the funnel to really kind of help create everything that we should do. So I had a dream that we could do it differently. We could do it better. And that kind of led me on my journey. The reason I say, though, that it started before 2008, in 2002, my 2-year-old daughter at the time was diagnosed with a very, very rare spinal cord tumor. And it absolutely crushed our household. It was something that, um, just for 3 months, I just couldn't really do anything. But it was amazing. When she came out of her surgery, she was paralyzed from the chest down. Slowly, she started to regain, was able to kind of go through these aggressive chemo protocols, aggressive PT, OT, to kind of get back. We thought we had beat it. 3 months after we beat it, tumor was back to its original size again. And so we had just kind of gone through all these different forms of, chemotherapy and such. And so I have at the time, from a business standpoint, I have this idea of how the world is changing and the role that experiential could play. But I also have an incredibly sick daughter who is battling this cancer. And as I'm watching her, she just wanted to be a kid. She had physical limitations from the surgeries, but she was resilient. She just wanted to get out there. She didn't care about her bald head and leg braces and the fact that her hand lost the use of her hand. And honestly, she was an inspiration to me. And as I looked at her go through so many years of just trying to be normal, here I was struggling with all of these different ideas of things that we could do. and I was the one that was holding myself back. And so, hence the name Inspira. It's about my daughter Kennedy, and her sort of serving as that inspiration to me. So I had a chance to start a business that I just wanted to completely build from the ground up. And it was really built on a few core tenets about building a really strong culture and respecting and valuing our people, being incredibly creative and driving performance for our clients. But at the same time, too, I wanted to be anchored in philanthropy and be able to give back. Through this whole journey, I found out how rare pediatric cancer is and the lack of funding for it. And so while we're doing this to try to build and scale and start a business, how can we actually use that opportunity to give back and make a positive impact in the world?
Well, thank you. Just so that you know, my wife is a pediatrician,
Okay.
and she has a company that is actually working in the treatment of cancer space.
Oh,
So with natural plant-based pharmaceuticals, because she comes from that background also. So I when you mentioned that, when I read that, thank you for sharing that story. It is an inspiration.
yeah.
Now
So,
that you were inspired to this madness of Inspira,
yeah.
please share the journey and the outcome of from 2000, early years of 2008 to date,
Well,
because
yeah.
the world has changed. The world continuously keeps on changing, whether it is of pandemics or others in the world of brand building.
Yeah.
How do you adapt to, and that makes a constant change in the world of brand building and
Right.
development?
Well, let's start with the first part of that question. So, when anyone gets to that phase, so I'd been thinking about this for years, and finally got to take a first step in March of 2008. Let's remember what happened in March of 2008. It was not the best time to have a business, launch a business, start a business, whatever it may be. So nothing could have predicted that, in term from a startup standpoint. Um, but it has really been, I guess the one thing to your question about sort of from an evolution perspective, one of the things that I think has been critical to this is just, I think we've been really fortunate to um, hire people for the team that have an entrepreneurial mindset. And the reason I say that is because um, people who can hit a wall and be able to turn and pivot and pivot and pivot and just be solution oriented with it and kind of keep going. um, People who don't have that, where they really are very sort of formulaic and need process. I mean, we're a very process driven company, but who like to kind of go from step A to B. Being in live event space, you have to deal with chaos all the time. And it's all about how you're able to kind of react, how you're able to pivot, how you're able to expand on that particular challenge and turn it into a positive, and just be really sort of solution oriented at the very core. So I think one of the things that, throughout sort of the duration starting at where it's just sort of me as one person and building up to just shy of 500 employees, the people that tend to do great here are the people who kind of come at it with that kind of brain.
If you had to do all over again, what are some of the things that you would do different, and what are those things that you would classify in your space and others as something what not to do?
One of the things I'm sure when you talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, one of the biggest regrets they have, number one, is actually not doing it sooner. Um, and that was, really, I think for me, where I did have an idea of what I wanted to do for some time, and did not necessarily have the confidence to act on it sooner. And I do regret that. I do, because I think I had in my mind that it was going to be so expensive and so much money and capital, and you needed to have people and you needed to have clients, you needed to have all this kind of stuff that had to just be perfect. And there's ways that you could just really do such extreme analysis over that, to the point where it turns into paralysis, right? So analysis paralysis is just one of those common traits. that was kind of one, from the beginning. I think one of the other, I don't necessarily view this. I've got to be careful how I say this. When I left my old agency, I wanted to be completely above board and ethical. And so working with my business partners at the time to let them know that I was leaving to just really start a competitive agency. Um, and in doing so, not only did I pass on my clients that I had, but I actually gave them my prospects. And that was really dumb because I was, look, 40 years old. Um, all of my key relationships were prospects, and I was basically starting completely fresh from ground zero in, by the way, an environmental climate like 2008.
Yes.
So I had zero clients, I had zero revenue, I had zero prospects of building from the ground up, and that was just a absolute tragedy. I mean, I came within weeks of not making it as a business because of that. It just took me a lot longer to get clients, a lot longer to kind of get that revenue. So just not being able to start. And I think one of the other, if I had to go back and do it and differently, one of the mistakes I made was actually I ended up self-financing the company. So I really was focused where I cashed out my 401k. I took a second mortgage and really sort of used my own money. And when you come out of the gates of it, you're just expecting like instant success. So it's like I'd get a meeting and I would hop on a plane to go meet with someone. And then, next thing you know, though, that was $1,500. And I had an accountant who just every week was like, all right, Jeff, I need a check for $3,500 to pay these bills. I need a check for $5,000. I need a check for $7,500. And you're just going like, wow, I'm watching like this nest egg and equity in the house that I've built up over the years just absolutely go right out the door. Um, so I say that because I think having done it differently, I think I would have actually done a capital raise in some form or fashion, and probably not, going private equity route or venture capital or things like that, but even just a friends and family one where they could just have given you sort of that seed and really just that safety net. Because it's a real eye opener when you see that diminishing bank account week after week after week, and not a lot coming into it.
But that's called bootstrapping, right?
That's called
So,
bootstrapping, and you do tend
yeah.
to appreciate it more. I'll say that. Yeah.
But the other way you can look at it, the counter side of that is because of that, you were able to keep significant control of your destiny,
Yeah.
although it is one of the most expensive capitals at that stages, you could potentially raise, right?
Yeah.
So just to
Well,
summarize,
can I just build
of
on
course,
that? I think that's
please.
a perfect segue because the having seen people who other entrepreneurs who have had really like capital business partners, um, they're so limited in what they can do because it's really everything just becomes very bottom line driven. And we really did take a page that was completely different. We want it to be a company about the people, for the people, and really overinvest in the culture. My finance person, who started out as a temporary kind of finance and then eventually is now kind of risen up to CFO, he told me I shouldn't be in business because of the little money that we made wasn't worth necessarily the risk. And I just knew in my heart that if we could still build this engine and kind of make it, it shows in the work that we do. People are proud to come to work. They're proud to represent us, and it translates differently. And I said, you got to just trust me on this. You got to just trust me. We're gonna break through this plane and be able to kind of scale it. And if I did have investors who were looking for a return on that investment, that would have absolutely been squashed early stage and probably wouldn't have allowed us to keep and kind of maintain some of the talent that we have within.
Yeah.
That's a good point that you raised.
Yeah. No, I think the other side of the story is your business space was itself creative, disruptive to the conventional wisdom that was going on. And since there was not an established uh, pathway, you would have had potential difficulties from investors understanding and
Right.
adapting to continuously changing, or as you call, pivoting.
Yes.
And it creates a conflict at times. So the lesson from what you yourself just shared is keep control of your destiny
Right.
so that you can drive the passion and the gut level feeling that you
Yeah.
have created in the process.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, the one thing that obviously entrepreneurs do, which you called as the death by analysis, is the definition of fear. Right?
Yeah.
Fear is positively used in entrepreneurship, and fear can be negatively implemented in delaying the process in entrepreneur. When it is positively used, it creates guidance to do the right thing.
Yeah.
When it is sometimes negatively used, it creates a delay of an unnecessary point in time.
Yeah.
So,
That was especially too with again, I'm sure most people, you know, they have mortgages, they have wives, they have kids. In this particular case, health insurance was obviously a really big factor, just given Kennedy's situation. And you talk about the fear. You know, it actually took me a year and a half to bring this idea up to my wife. I was actually scared to bring it up to her that I had this idea. And of course, when I did, and I told her about it, she just looked at me and she said, "Oh, yeah, you have to do this. You have to do this." And I was just like, it's just this massive weight that was just relieved. So yeah, I catch.
that's great. That's great. So, Jeff, during this journey of disruptive marketing, and I'm using the word, so please forgive me with that because it is, and I want to learn from you on the various elements because entrepreneurs must know what you do in different ways because they don't really understand brand building. They just think that getting great logos and having posh offices is brand building, but there is something that is much more valuable to it, and I definitely would like you to share that so that people can learn the depth and the intensity of what truly brand building is at Inspera.
Yeah, yeah. I think, you know, the world that we get to play in is just magical. I mean, part of our process that we'll do, we have hundreds and hundreds of people out every single day, interfacing with tens of thousands, millions of people in a given year. Um, every opportunity is a touch point to learn more about customers and what drives them and motivates them. And it's not about just affiliation for what type of car that you drive or you know why you think that you choose it, but really kind of like what helps. We get very deep. We do these deep ethnography type studies to really like understand consumers at their best. But then to be able to couple that with understanding what a brand stands for and how we can actually sort of take what's best about a brand and then curate an experience that's going to resonate and light up and really kind of create these experiences where they're going to fall in love with one another, right? So where people will fall in love with brands. And through this sort of like live event and not necessarily just live, I mean, really brand experience happens in many ways, shapes, and forms, from a digital landscape to in real life. Um, but for us, it's just really about sort of like understanding at the core of what is a brand at its best, what's the consumer at their best, and how can we kind of create that meaningful connection, that ownable position that can really kind of forge the two. We've had a really great opportunity to work with amazing brands and partners, brands like Jeep and you know Diageo, which is Johnny Walker and Captain Morgan and Guinness Beer, you know Mondelez, Nestle, and each one of them have unique challenges that they're faced with, And it's just fantastic just to be able to work with such creative people here that we can collectively sort of dissect and break that down and really kind of figure out how, through the use of curating these experiences, how we can really kind of help solve that.
Jeff, just a personal question as you share this with me. A part of your business model is to work in the brand enhancement of established brands
Mm-hmm.
and to create valuable exposure and further memories in the consumer's mind. How does one entrepreneur create a brand where there is not that establishment, and what is that journey quickly that they can affiliate? Because they can say, oh, well, I'm not that big, so I don't know whether I should really work with Inspira or something like that. So
Yeah.
what would you say to to those kinds of questions?
Yeah, it's funny because I think we do an incredible job with our clients, and probably not as creative a job when you're looking, for ourselves. But I think the one thing is to kind of also understand, and this gets back to with some of the brand work too. But what's the source of business, right? So who is it that is going to be most attracted to a particular brand? And so as we're doing that for our customers, we also kind of thought that way through ourselves. We are different. Honestly, like the fact that we put such an emphasis on the human capital and care, the fact that we really go to the nth degree to sort of curate these experiences. So we're not a low cost provider. We also just, I think, are very nice in what we do in terms of giving back and sort of the philanthropy, component of it. And there are really, honestly, some clients and customers out there that those sometimes conflict. They'll be very hard drivers. It's about efficiency. It's about effectiveness. It's really the low cost, highest value. And honestly, we tend maybe that's not necessarily the place that we need to play. The brands and clients and customers that are open to really allowing us to get deep within their brand, to kind of challenge them. Because a lot of times also when people look at their brand, they only list out the positives as to what it stands for. They don't necessarily look at what some of the challenges are that they really have to solve for. And some people don't necessarily like to hear that. But when you do, that's, I think, where you really get to the magic about helping to really drive performance. And so for those who are willing to kind of have that level of openness with us, understanding that it is a journey and a true partnership. So it's not necessarily a vendor, but it is more of a business partner that's going to really kind of help drive their business, really kind of creates that affiliation. And you know what? Like some of the byproducts of what maybe the work that we do, you start generating positive buzz and word of mouth, and people who might be at one company who then go to another, and they're going to actually take you with us because you know what, such a great job. And that to me, reputation is everything. Guard it with your life. That has just been one thing, to just try to be incredibly ethical and passionate about what we do, and always, always, always over deliver. And I just felt like that was going to be sort of that organic building blocks that we're going to allow our agency to scale to the size that we are today.
So there are in this, and I have a sort of while you're talking to me, I'm thinking about how is it possible that you have a creative mind at the top of the organization, and this culturally you have embedded and transmitted, rather franchised, the creativity at the deepest level of the company, because at the end of it, it is all a creative process, right?
Yeah.
It's not a production process, it's a creative process of customers, new events, new things. How do you manage such a scalability of creativity?
Yeah, you know what? Look, people would argue with this. I actually don't see myself as a great creative. I know great creative when I see it, and I really love the process of getting to great creative, and that comes through conflict and that comes through challenge. But I also love to surround myself with people who are not yes, yes men or yes women, people who will push back. And I think that that level helps get you to a better place. It's never the iteration that you start with is where you finish. But really just that whole that just iterative process of being able to kind of go through. I mean, I've had fights with people, but at the end of the day, they're like, "Damn it, you're right though." Or maybe I'm wrong, So
So, besides your daughter and of course your wife, what are the couple of events or people in your journey that really changed you? They can be emotional or they can be funny.
yeah, um, a couple people like individuals.
People, events,
Yeah,
what are those that you remember? Why this really
yeah.
changed me, sort of.
I mean, there are a couple that come to mind. Well, one, I'll tell you, this was an interesting one. So, my business partner Kim and I have worked together for our past couple companies, and we are absolutely yin and yang. I mean, what I'm good at, she's not. What she's great at, I'm not at all. But we have a shared vision for quality of work, for delivering, for customer service, and that is magical. So I came to her and I said, "Hey, I've got this great idea. I'm going to start an agency, but in my contract, I can't hire any employees. So I need you to quit." And he was like, "What?" And I was like, "Oh, I found you another job, So she actually quit her job. I found her another job, company that we were at. And then, of course, when I come over, you're expecting lightning to happen right away. And do you know that it took me 13 or 14 months before I could actually afford to hire her? So I look back on that. You want to talk about leap of faith and trust in me for her to go to that level. Uh, I think was just you know uh, incredible.
That's great.
Uh, yeah,
Anything else? Anybody like that
yeah,
transformative?
yeah. I think. Well, you know what? I actually there was one gentleman, Jay Nisberg, who he was the guy who got me over the I can't do this stage. And he said, "Jeff, why can't you start a business?" I'm like, "Jay, I need $1 million." He's like, $1 million. Okay, let's go through this. And he literally on the back of a napkin, let's start going. What do you need this money for? An office. Do you really need an office right away? Can you work at your house? Okay, great. Do you really need to have 4 employees? Do you really need to have? So what I thought was this like big, hairy, audacious number. At the end of the day, it was like $150,000, and it was like one
That
of the
you could afford. That you could afford.
yes, but you just need someone to like literally lead you down that path because
Yes,
honestly,
yes.
that would have been the barrier coupled with the fear that I don't think I would have ever, gotten over. So I think that was sort of like uh, just a critical moment, just even to kind of take that
Great. That's
first
great.
step, and
It's a
was really
great learning.
yeah,
Jeff,
yeah.
were you to be invited, which I'm sure you have been, to an MBA class, and you were asked to share with them, of course, maybe 3 elements or whatever, and by that area, of what is it that you would consider what not to do, what would those be?
Hmm. What not to do? Um, I think one is know your strength, and the flip side of that too, of course, know your weaknesses. Um, the reality is that if I were a control freak and wanted to be involved in every decision from sales, from creativity, from production, from execution, from to finance, um, it would have been we would not have seen year two. Um, So I think that was, one of the things would have just, I think originally maybe I was a little, because we had to tight, but what not to do would be to try to stay sort of like within that control. Being able to trust the people around you, being able to allow them and empower them to kind of handle, then really allows you to spend your time, effort, and energy in the right places. That would be, one. Two, what not to do. Getting back to the
Fear.
cash flow. No, cash flow. Okay, like actually, kind of understand, money in, money out, and that was a very expensive lesson to learn. Where really being very, very smart and wise with every expenditure. And I feel like such an idiot saying this because it's like,
Yeah,
of
that's
course,
why what not to do, right?
yeah, but let me tell you, it was like, oh, I was like Mr. Big Shot, I was like jumping on a plane and like doing all this stuff. So, that was definitely another one. And then I guess with that too, maybe in a similar vein, from a cash flow standpoint too. We had a situation probably maybe 4 or 5 years into our company. So still definitely sort of entrepreneurial, but we had this wonderful thing happen where I won like a piece of business that was just massive with a big client, Jim Beam. And I was like doing cartwheels because this is going to like, transform our agency and just allow us to build and scale. And my at the time I had an outsourced kind of finance guy, and he came in and he said, he goes, "You're going to be out of business in 2 months." I said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "We just won like $1 million client, this and that." And he said, "By the way, Jeff, here are their terms. You have to spend the money first, and then once you file an invoice on the spent money, it's going to be net 60. You have a line of credit of $150,000." And I was like, "Well, we just need to get more." And so we went back to our bank, explained the situation, and they said, "We'll take you to 300,000." Well, I needed $1 million, and thank God, without me knowing it, this guy actually filed applications to 3 different banks. We ended up interviewing. We ended up got an $850,000 line. I needed every dollar of it. I again had to go back and cash out all of my retirement funds, and again, just to make payroll. It came within, like that close. And so, can you imagine though, if I
Yeah.
didn't have a guy like that?
Yep.
Like it would be crushing.
Yes.
Um,
Surprise. And you would be surprised. You wouldn't know because you were just under the,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. One of the hardest lessons I've learned too, again, like just as to pass on to future entrepreneurs, um, the lesson would be to fire mistakes sooner. You're not gonna make them better. You're good, but not that good. And yeah,
Hey,
hanging on to people mistakes too long
yeah.
really are culture killers,
Yes.
poison pills.
Jeff, today, in this today's world of abundance of capital, and the main artery of is capital, how do you manage to guide your ship of this magnitude, still keep control through choosing the right sources of capital? Because the golden rule is the man with the gold rules.
Right.
So what kind of guidance would you provide to the readers and to the entrepreneurs on
Yeah.
how you would choose your capital?
Yeah. First of all, I'm not the best person to answer this because, again, we've been successful to actually bootstrap, where I haven't needed the actual like outside money, and injection of capital. I will say that had I done it, we would have scaled faster and very well could be much larger. But I couldn't afford to, lose that. Now, I will say over the past several years, we've had a number of folks approach us. Some are really more targeted people within the space itself who are looking for kind of someone to help complement their business. We've had private equity companies approach us of if we're sort of at that stage, and just actually having like several meetings with them, man, you could see who was in it for the transaction and the churn and the finance, and then those who really cared and who appreciated what it is that you were doing, what it is that you were building. And it's funny because when I think through sort of our exit from this, and inevitably it will probably involve a transaction like that, I really at this stage believe that I will take less money in terms of preserving what it is that we've built and being able to work with someone who kind of understands that aspect of it. And all of my friends in YPO and other areas think I'm absolutely crazy. But when you put everything into building your dream company as to what it stands for, it would kill me to see that capital come in and to just see it piece by piece erode.
Sure. Thank you, Jeff. Jeff, I have asked you a lot of questions. Maybe you have a few for me, and it would be a privilege and a pleasure to share whatever I can with the questions.
I'd like to get back to the core here. I guess from your experience, other than what I've said, do you have any tips or suggestions for me of what not to do?
Well, I don't know about what not to do because you already have learned, but I can, as an outsider, kind of share some of the stuff. One thing is, Jeff, that in today's capital world, I think your business will go on a turbo growth where you're able to access capital.
Yeah.
If there is any single thing that I see from the outside right now, would be that. And capital is not logic 0, logic 1, which means that you don't necessarily have to access what is considered as cutthroat capital, right? And you are too big for what is considered as emotional capital.
Mm-hmm.
Emotional capitals are the ones that you did. You went and you got emotional, and you went and borrowed against your house and everything like that, right? And then there was the experience you had with the private equity or the kind of stuff. But there is a whole source of capital which comes from private wealth.
Yeah.
And that capital allows you to do your dream, because you don't need to have 100% ownership in order to create and manage the growth that you have.
Right.
You could share 15, 20, whatever the number is, to get that capital so that you can achieve in the same period of time a rapid growth curve, specifically related to the credibility and the infrastructure that you have already built.
Yeah.
And so if there is anything that that could enhance that rate of growth, is that access to that capital.
Yeah. I agree.
So my what not to do would be, don't think of the fear of control when there are other sources of capital that can tremendously put you on a turbo growth curve.
Yeah.
Jeff, any other questions?
No, this has been great. It's been really nice chatting with you. Thanks for carving out the time, and
Well, thank you for accepting my invitation.
Sorry to Renee for the scheduling conflict the other day.
It's no issues. That happens to all of us. But thank you again. I absolutely enjoyed the conversation, and I am sure a lot of people are going to learn from this exchange.
Okay.
And thanks again, my friend. Good evening.
Thanks. Okay.